I know I'm not the only one that has felt less safe in the past couple of years. There just seems to have been an increase in an influx of emergencies since 2020. Between hurricanes, wildfires, train derailments, civil unrest, and now we're on the brink of financial collapse. Shit's getting weird, and I don't want to be a victim. I don't think you want to be a victim either. And I think the best way is to be prepared. And you're like, what are you talking about? Be prepared for what? I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think anyone knows. All we can do is speculate on what may happen next. In this video, I'm going to give you tools that I think everyone needs in case whatever happens. Now, most of us don't have the luxury of just fucking off into the woods and going into our bunker that's stocked with food. You know, it's underground, completely separated from society, or, you know, as many people have suggested, just go to your vacation home, because we all have vacation homes to go to. Most of us are going to be in an apartment. Most of us are going to be in a home, in a suburb, outside of a metropolitan area, near a large city. Most of us are going to be around a higher population. We're not going to be on some 30-acre farm where we're self-sustained. I mean, that would be amazing. That would be ideal for all of us. But that's just not the case for a lot of us. And so we still want to be prepared. We still want to survive whatever may happen. So in this video, I want to give you the tools that I think will give you the best odds of survival. I want to assume that you already have food, water, and weapons. Now, if you don't, that's okay. We can do each one of those categories as a separate video. But I'm assuming you have those covered, and we're going to go into some other things that you may not have thought of yet. Now, this first topic to me is the most important, and it's going to be medical. A lot of people, they focus on self-defense, they focus on firearms, ammo, how to inflict pain on someone else, right? In the event that your life is being threatened. But no one thinks about if they're going to be hurt. No one thinks about what to do if they get shot, if someone they care about gets shot, or just gets hurt. One of the biggest things that you're going to have to worry about, especially if you're in the South like I am, is infection because of humidity. An infection can affect everyone, but even just a scratch could kill you. So for medical, I want you to focus on an IFAK. An IFAK stands for Individual First Aid Kit. So the way I have it situated is on this combat belt, war belt, whatever you want to call it. Here it is right here. So this is all we're going to focus on right now. You don't have to have this on a belt. I mean, it does come in handy, but you could have it on, your bag, or just carry it individually. So inside this kit, this is going to be for injuries that are going to be, a lot larger. Think of, being shot, stabbed, any kind of accident, things like that, where you got to stop bleeding very quickly. So the first one is going to be bleed stop. This is going to be a powder form, and for minor cuts to severe bleeding wounds. And this works for people on blood thinners, which God knows there's a lot of people on blood thinners, unfortunately. And so this is definitely one of those things that you want to have on you. Next up is going to be compressed gauze. Once again, a lot of these things are to stop the bleeding. Stop bleeds, obviously, because you do not want to bleed out. Next up, we have a chest seal. And there's instructions on the back how to use it. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But there it is, if you can see it, for entry and exit wounds. All right, next up is an emergency bandage, or a Israeli bandage. Once again, this is another, it's just a thicker bandage for clotting and just trying to soak up and absorb as much of that blood, stop it from bleeding. And then you're going to have your trauma shears, cut off clothing to get to that wound. And last but not least is a tourniquet. And this is going to be a clutch for any of those situations where massive trauma, lots of bleeding, where your seconds count. You're going to want to have a couple of these. And then, of course, hydrogen peroxide. We talked about infection, and so having something like this on hand to kill any of that bacteria as soon as possible. Now, none of this is useful or doesn't serve a purpose if you don't know how to use it. I'm not a medical professional, so I'm going to have to get familiar with all these things. So in the future, I'm going to be taking a Stop the Bleed class. This is a free class. I want to say it's about 2 hours long, and they should have one in your area. I'll put a link in the description on how to find a Stop the Bleed class near you. And I want to get familiar with using all of these things, because in the moment, you're just going to have such an adrenaline dump that you're not going to be able to do anything. You're just going to be a mess. And you're going to really be relying on muscle memory to do a lot of these things. It's just like dry firing. If you do that, you know what I'm talking about, just getting those reps in. And so it's going to be the same with using a tourniquet, using a bandage. I mean, ideally, you'd want to buy a couple of these so you can use them, get familiar with them, and maybe show other family members or other people that are part of your community how to use these things, because it'll be a lot better if someone can do it on you than you doing it on yourself. Next up is going to be comms or radios. This is the Baofeng. It's usually the UV5R. That's the one you want to look up. These are really cheap. I think they've even come down in price, probably because of the demand. I'll link this in the description as well. This is probably the most economic, best bang for your buck radio. I have it paired with the whip antenna. It's just going to give you more range. So in the event there isn't an EMP or something like that, and you still have repeater towers, and you have other people that are going to be transmitting, this is going to be really useful. One, to get more information, other people telling you what's going on in their area, and just listening to other emergency broadcasts and hearing what's going on there. So these radios are great right out of the box. You can just turn it on, hit scan, and it'll scan to any frequencies that are open that are broadcasting anything. But outside of that, you want to get a programming cable and be able to essentially jailbreak it, and it'll give you more frequencies, more channels to find that aren't available outside of right out of the box. So we're going to go over radios and comms in a separate video. I want to make this something that's easy to understand, because the more information that you have in an emergency, the better you're going to be, the better decisions you're going to be able to make when you have the right information and just information in general. Depending on your situation, depending on where you are, you may have to go on foot. You may have to go somewhere. You may have to leave where you're at. And this setup is great because you're able to wear it with your regular ear pro that you go shooting with, and you can hook this up to your radio just like this. And this way you don't have this radio making all this noise when you're out and about. It'll go straight to your headphones, and then you'd be able to communicate through this microphone. So this is a really great setup. This is the push to talk right here. So you can have this on your shoulder, you can have this on your bag, wherever you want it to be. So you don't even have, you can literally just put your radio wherever you want, on your belt, on your bag, and then you have your push to talk here, like I said, and you can orient this however you need to, and you can be as stealth as possible, still get intel, still communicate with whoever you need to communicate to, and you kind of won't blow your cover by just having the radio just transmit out loud. Staying on the topic of gathering intel, we just talked about comms. Next would be getting a map of your area, preferably a paper map. You can laminate it, you can do whatever you want with it. That'll make it easier. You may not have access to the internet or your phone. Maybe it's a power outage, maybe it's an EMP, who knows what it is. But if you have a paper map, you know you'll be able to have access to it. And this is gonna help you do a couple things. One, it may help you find resources nearby, or it'll help you get to another place if you have to bug out, if you have to leave your home. So I have one. I live in Texas, and this is a great one to go through, and it kind of just highlights different landmarks. Texas is a really big state. And so wherever you're at, this is something that you definitely want to think about putting inside your preps. The other thing too is a drone. And once again, I know that depending on the situation, you may or may not be able to use it. Like in an EMP, there's ways to protect it with a Faraday cage. You can put a lot of your electronics that you'll need for things like that. But if you're able to get a drone, and a lot of these drones are cheaper now, especially the older ones, just like this one. I'm actually getting a new one this week. But even this Mavic Pro, which is a couple of years old, is more than capable of gathering intel in your area, and without you having to risk your life and go to places in person to do reconnaissance, to see what's going on in the area, to see maybe who's governing the area, who's the occupying force. It may be local government, it might be a foreign government, who knows? But if you have the drone, you'd rather this get shot down than you get shot. And so having something like this to gather intel and be able to see what's going on would make a huge deal, especially in the moment. And you pair this with radios and drones and maps, and you're able to kind of coordinate with a small group of people, would go a really, really long way. Next, we're going to talk about entry and exit tools. These three things have very specific purposes, but when you need them, you'll really need them. The first one is these collapsible bolt cutters. And, there may be different roads, different buildings that you want to get access to for resources, or even just to leave the area. But you may want to commandeer a building. You may want to take it over, maybe because the place you're at isn't inhabitable anymore for whatever reason. But you don't want to destroy the door because you want to use it later. So these, as you can see, they break down, but they'll be very useful in the moment. And so they break down like that, and you can just put them in your pack, which will be really, really useful when you need them. The next is this Spec Ops crowbar. And you can see how small it is, how light it is. I would love to test the pressure to see how much this would actually take. But this is very sharp, and this would definitely come in use. It's sharp and it's small. So it would definitely be useful as a melee weapon without a doubt, because it's very concealable. And so this would allow you to get in at least windows and things of that nature that might be locked. I don't know about it, like a real heavy door or anything like that, but just how small it is, how concealable it is. And like I said, this end here is really, really sharp. So this is something that you can just slip through your molly on your bag, and it doesn't take up any room. Now this one, the rope, this was really going to depend on how many of you maybe live above a second floor or higher in an apartment building, depending on, even if you lived on the 15th floor, you could get lower to down to a lower area where it would give you a better chance of getting to the ground floor. And so if you need to make an exit, or you want to climb a building, get on top, get a better view of what's going on, climbing on top of a store or a building that, like I said, you can get gather more information. And like I said, once again, when there's an emergency, you're going to want as much information as you possibly can. So I think pairing this with like maybe a grappling hook that you could throw up on a building, climb up there, if there isn't like a ladder or anything like that to get up there, would go a really long way. And this is something where you're not going to just, you're not going there to actually do anything in particular other than just gather information. You're just doing recon. This book is really useful for knots and how to use the rope the most effectively. So this next category, I'm just going to name it nylon. And there's a couple things that would go a really long way if you had them on you in an emergency. First off is a good pair of gloves. I like these. These are from 511. Everyone's familiar with the mechanics gloves. But I saw someone that mentioned gloves as a consumable, which I never thought about it like that, but it's true. These will wear out and you're going to need to replace them. So buying a couple pairs of these is a good idea. They're not that expensive. And when, you probably have the most nerve endings on your fingers. So they're the last things that you want to scratch up or cut. And so gloves will go a really long way for a variety of reasons. Next up is getting a poncho. The last thing you want to do is be wet. And now then you get cold. That's when, you get infections and things like that. So, or you just get sick, and you get a cold. Getting a poncho will go a really long way, keeping you dry, you can put it over your bag and keep everything that's in your bag dry as well. Even if your bag is a dry sack, it still doesn't hurt to have an extra layer over top of it. But more importantly, you want the one that's going to be open, so it's not going to have the sleeves. And so it's going to be one of these that's going to keep you dry. Like I said, it doesn't have sleeves on it, which is what you want, because you can still use this to put over you if you need to go outside and be somewhere where you need, maybe let's say you're in the woods, you can tie this between two trees using the paracord or rope or anything like that. Next in this category is going to be a chest rig. It's kind of everything all in one. There's a lot of places where you'll buy the placard by itself, and then you'll get the dangler pouch, and then you can add all these other things on. Those are great too. They just are a lot more expensive, but you can configure them. So that's the benefit of having those, is that you can kind of buy what you need. But if you're just kind of getting into it, this is kind of an all-in-one. Okay, so this is what it looks like on. Right here you have your placard. You have 3 mags right here. And then right here, this dangler or admin pouch. You can kind of put whatever you need in here. Maybe a multi-tool or some sort of snack that has sugar. That's going to keep you sustained for a little bit. And then also it has a place for a tourniquet. So this is kind of an all-in-one. I like it a lot, like I said, because it kind of is ready to go. And it was discontinued for a little bit, but it looks like they brought it back, and it's in a couple different colors. They only had it in black and black multicam, but now they have it in a bunch of different color combos. And the last thing I want to say about this is that I like how easy it is to get in and out of it. So it has these adjustable, the straps here and here that you can adjust to make it tighter on your body, because you're going to want it as tight as possible. And you can also use these little like ripcord things to get in and out of it, and then you can take it off of you. The last thing I want to say is that I really like the use of a chest rig, because, especially like this one, because it's slim. So you could wear a windbreaker or a sweatshirt or a jacket, and this would be really concealable. You wouldn't, no one would know you have anything on you, versus like a plate carrier, which you could conceal, but it's going to be a lot more difficult. Okay guys, so we made it to the home stretch here. These are the last couple of things. little odds and ends that I think would make a really big difference. So starting off is a multi-tool. And I think this, goes without saying, when you have pliers, you have a flathead screwdriver, you have a Phillips, you have a bunch of different knives. There's just a multitude of uses for a multi-tool. So it's just one of those things you don't really think of, but you can carry that on a chest rig or just in your bag. It doesn't take up much room, but it really will come in handy in a lot of different scenarios. Next off is this knife by Maracnil, if I'm saying that correctly. But this knife is not super expensive, and a lot of these fixed blade knives can get really expensive. But a lot of people really vouch for this, and it is really nice. I like how it comes with its own sheath that has a really good retention, and it's made in Sweden, made of carbon steel, and I don't know if you can see, but it's thick, and like I said, it's not super expensive. I'll have all the prices and all the links so you guys can check it out for yourself. Comes in a couple of different color combinations, but for the price, you really can't beat it, and you can't beat having a fixed blade knife on you. Next up is this LED light. I really like this because it's small. It's LED. LEDs don't really use up a lot of power, but they're really bright. So I don't know if you guys can see how bright this is, but it's really small, and it also has the option for a red light, which is right there. This isn't gonna get off as much light, but you'll still be able to see, and especially in a small space, like if you're indoors, if you don't want to give away your position, the red light will come in handy for sure. And what I like about it is that you can put this thing on your hat, just like this, and then you'd be able to kind of turn this right here, and so you'll still be able to use it kind of like a headlamp, or like the chest rig, you'd be able to put it right on your strap or on your bag and still be able to use it being hands-free. Next up, this is a Sillcock key. This would give you access to any kind of water that goes to a building, anywhere outside in a city. So any of the places where there's water to, like I said, a building or a business or anything like that, at some point, water will stop working, especially if the power's out. There's going to be, there's electric pumps that pump them to throughout the city, and so you want to get access to the water that still is remaining before it gets dirty. And so a Sillcock key, this one in particular, has a couple different sizes. So depending on where it's at, something like this, you'd be able to use the other side of a socket to, if you need leverage, to break it free. But this could come in handy, especially if you run out of water. Next up, I still have this in the package because I haven't found the best way to kind of contain this or add it to my pack. But at some point, I'm going to get some sort of container, maybe something nylon that I can kind of stuff all of it inside. But this right here is a siphon transfer pump kit. And there's one side that is for water and one is for oil. So if you need to siphon oil or fuel from other vehicles that are not being used or anywhere else, you'd be able to just use this pump and transfer it straight to your vehicle. You wouldn't have to put it into another container or anything like that. So I think this is really, really handy in a scenario like that where you're going to need fuel. Fuel pumps are going to stop working, especially because, like I said, if electricity stops working, everything runs off electricity. And so if you can transfer it to your vehicle, in the case of an EMP, it's only going to be older vehicles that are going to work. And so all the newer vehicles will not work anymore, but they will still have gas in them. And so this would be the best way to get that fuel into a car that would still be running. And last but not least, I feel like this is something that a lot of people don't think about, and it's your socks. And I've been looking for a good solution. I don't know if you're anything like me, but my feet sweat a lot. And that's not a good thing, because when your feet are wet, that's when they tear, because the tissue gets soft and then you get an infection. No one wants to die from trench foot. So I really like these. These are copper infused socks. And I left one that I haven't worn yet. But since I bought these, I've been wearing them pretty much every day, and I wear them when I go to the gym. And what I really like about them is that they breathe. They feel thin like dress socks, but they're a lot stronger than dress socks. And the copper is supposed to stop the bacteria. That's, I guess, the whole point of the copper infused part of it, is that it will fight bacteria that's on your feet. So that's what I like about these. I know a lot of people talk about having wool socks. I've tried those. I don't really like them. I have them. I don't know, they're too thick. They don't have the elasticity that kind of like the way it sits on your foot. They feel really like bunched up. Where these, I love how these feel. So I will link all of these things in the description. So if you want to check them out for yourself and check out the prices, because they change all the time. But socks is something that you're going to, change regularly. You're going to have to, like I said, especially if you live in more humid climate, you do not want your feet getting wet. Okay, guys, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something, or maybe there's something you saw that made you think about your preparedness plan. I'm starting this account so we can have a discussion and possibly form a community where we can learn from each other. So if there's anything that I didn't mention, or there's something that you want to add, please put it in the comments. Let's turn this into a discussion where we can learn from each other. The more we work together, the better we will all be.